Today we're going to be doing a full breakdown of the infamous programme 531. My experience on the programme and a little bit of bonus content on a mistake that you and many others have made when running this programme. So what is 531? 531 is one of the first programmes that really get popular across the internet. It's written by Jim Wendler and it kind of takes a simplified, minimalistic approach to lifting. How's the programme structured? The programme's structured across 4 days: a squat day, a bench day, a deadlift day, and an overhead press day. The programme requires you to use a training max. This is 90% of your 1 rep max, and it is applied in place of where your 1 rep max would be. The thought behind this is, rather than getting you on your absolute best day, all-time PR, that you're doing what your current max is, what you would be capable of doing on any given day. 531 gets its name from its specific structure. The first week is 3 sets of 5, the second week is 3 sets of 3, and your final week is 3 sets of 1. Now, when it actually comes to the intensity, because these sets are staggered across varying percentages, the first 2 sets are actually only a warm-up rather than really contributing to your overall training volume. The key of progression in this programme is actually that final heaviest set. And with that final heaviest set, not only do you perform the repetitions prescribed, but it is something called a plus set. And with a plus set, you do as many as you can past that number. So for instance, if I'm on week 1 and I'm doing 85% for 5 plus, I'll maybe get through my first 5, but then be able to push myself for an additional 3 reps. If I'm able to do that, that's a good indicator that I'll be able to move up my training max by the end of the wave structure. The programme is structured itself on a kind of weekly wave basis. There are 3 weeks that ramp up in intensity and drop back on volume, and there is then an additional week that is a deload week that is structured there to serve as a recovery point to allow you to then add 5 to 10 pounds to all your training maxes and repeat the percentages based on your new training max. When we talk about 531 and its structure, we just talk about the 5s, the 3s and the 1s, the given rep percentages for your main lift. However, Jim Wendler has actually released many different variations of this programme. It's not just the main lifts that you can do. He's done boring but big. That's one where you would do your main compound lifts and then back them off into 5 sets of 10 with about 50% of your 1 rep max to really drive up volume. There's also the triumvirate, which is a variation that allows you to have 2 given exercises driven after your main work for a little bit of extra hypertrophy and strength support. What do I like about this programme? I like that it gives a whole day to every single lift. This is really good for splitting across equal importance. Oftentimes exercises like the overhead press are forgotten or kind of put on the back burner, whereas this programme really brings it to the front and treats it with equal importance to other compound lifts such as the squat, bench and deadlift. What I like about this as well is it allows you to give specific focus to each day, and it means that none of your main compound lifts are being shortchanged with a lack of effort. You know that that's your main thing that you want to do for that day, and it just allows you to give your best effort possible. All too often I'll see programmes that will have a squat and a bench and maybe an overhead press on the same day, and the squat's the best intensity you've ever seen, the bench press is passable, and then the overhead press is pretty crap. So by splitting these up across days and not stacking compound lifts into compound lifts. It gives the opportunity for specific work dedicated to getting better at the technique of a given exercise. It asks for a training max. I think a training max is really useful actually for most people. For most people, they will have an idea of what the 1 rep max is, and it's maybe 8 months ago they benched really heavy in their friend's gym after, you know, the stars aligned for them, and they will take that as their 1 rep max. A training max just really allows you to humble yourself and remain realistic. Of course, this was one of the programs that was first popular across the internet, and I think the training max structure was a really good thing from Jim Wendler, because I think it kept a lot of people honest. Considering it was to go out for so many people, people are all often far too concerned about their numbers and have a little bit of an emotional attachment to their strength numbers and their PRs. So this just allows people to be realistic of what they are capable of in any kind of given moment. And the training max structure allows this. Not only this, as well, it gives people a bit more room to grow into the program. Those first initial weeks are going to be pretty easy because it is based off of a training max, and it gives you longer to go until you find yourself really grinding up against those higher intensity efforts. I want to speak about plus sets. Plus sets are one of my absolute favourite tools when it comes to programming, and this love was really sparked from this program actually. This was the first time I ever seen a plus set, was when I was running this program, and it changed a lot of the way that I think about programming. Just that ability to see what true failure is on a plus set and absolutely guarantee that you're taking your compound lifts to failure with a, you know, fairly big percentage of your 1 rep max is always going to be conducive to growth and also increases in strength. I like the structure and the changing rep ranges. I think that's really good from a standpoint of periodization, in the sense that it allows people to manipulate volume and intensity in your earlier weeks when you're doing a little bit more high rep work with lighter weights. You're in that kind of volume zone, but then you peak up to 95% of your training max and you get kind of see the more intensity, strength driven side of things. I think they really feed back into each other and allow for good recovery and variation. But also as well, I just like doing it. Like, I think it was really fun to do when I was on this program. That novelty is such a factor in this program, and I think with these changes and variations, that really shines through, because keeping mentally turned on to a workout regime can sometimes be really hard. And I find that 1 week you're doing, you know, let's say your 5s, the next week you know that you don't have to do as many reps, but you're kind of on your 3 zone, and then you're up in your 1s and you're trying to hit some heavy weight. So it gives you this really good balance of just breaking the monotony of working out. I think if you're someone that's really used to doing like 3 sets of 5 week after week, or 3 sets of 8, 3 sets of 12, 3 sets 8 to 12, I find that this program is really good just because it changes up. It prevents that mental burnout that you see all too often in programs, and it just keeps it fun. The next thing that I really like was that the program brought kind of intermediate programming to the masses. I think that a lot of people before this program were just kind of stuck in that kind of novice, early intermediate limbo, and this had just enough simple periodization that allowed so many people to break plateaus. It's such a simple yet effective program, and it's had an amazing positive impact on the entire gym populace. Here is what I didn't like. So something that's not really often spoke about, I don't think, is there's kind of a lack of frequency. You have to take the good with the bad. Having specific days for squat, bench and deadlift, overhead press is good in some capacities, but is also bad in others. All too often I've seen people on this programme develop kind of poverty upper body lifts. You know, the lack of frequency for bench pressing and overhead pressing has had a bit of a negative impact on their results. I often find that benching or doing some type of bench movement twice a week is far more beneficial than anything you can do once a week. I've got a full video on the bench press that just went up recently. You can check that out if that's something that you're interested in, is increasing your bench press. But I think with this programme, it lacks one of the key points that I lay out in that video, and that is frequency. The warm-ups are good, but I don't know if there's a better use of people's resources, because essentially the primary driver of this programme is the final set. I call them warm-ups. A lot of people, the way it's laid out in the programme is that they're working sets, but they're definitely warm-ups because they don't reach any kind of significant proximity to failure. You know, for instance, you could maybe have the 3 sets of 5, all at 85%, and then just have the last one be a plus set. This would increase the volume exponentially, and I think that most people would be capable of doing it. So I think maybe the warm-ups could fall into the accusation of, I don't know, sandbagging volume a little bit. The deloads, I think a lot of the time the deloads aren't necessary. It obviously calls for a deload every 4 weeks, and I think the percentages given in the programme don't really warrant this. As I've discussed, it's actually pretty low volume when it comes to your first 2 sets actually being a warm-up and only your last set being a working weight. The other side to this is the intensity is also brought down by the fact that it's a training max that people are working off of, so that 95%, if it was a real 95%, would warrant a deload. But if it's coming to the fact that that is 95% of a training max, that makes it something closer to 85%, which would be working weight. And doing kind of 1 set of 5 with working weight isn't enough to really justify a monthly deload week. Finally, it's not specific to individuals. That isn't something that this programme can help, because this programme was entirely catered to the masses. It was catered for everyone, for any kind of Tom, Dick or Harry to be able to do this programme. But I would be amiss not to talk about it. A lot of people would get on better if they maybe just hired a really good coach and they could then cater for their specific circumstances. You know, for instance, 531 is a brilliant programme, but say you want to grow your quads and you've got really, really long legs. Squatting once a week will give you some really big glutes, some really good lower back strength. But if you're a long leg lifter, you would probably be better off doing something like a hack squat or a leg press on top of your squats. So what was my experience in the programme? So I'll take you back to a long time ago, before I ever started training. And at this point in time, my training used to resemble playing hopscotch on the machines. I used to train fairly hard. I used to train 3 hours a day, nearly every day, making up my workout as I went along, and then just taking every exercise to failure. And that actually worked, funnily enough, for a while. And eventually I would hit a plateau, and what I would do was I would just add even more work, and then I would hit a plateau, and to break through that plateau I would increase the workload even more sets, more exercises, longer gym sessions. And it did work, but it just got to a point that I was working out as much as possible, and I was getting nowhere with it. That was until I saw that famous T-Nation article by Jim Wendler. I looked at it, I looked at the training principles, I looked at how it was laid out. It was really logically consistent. And I really fell in love actually by the kind of, to me, what was a controversial attitude held by Jim Wendler. And it was that minimalistic workload. Like the fact that he was someone that had as big numbers as he did, as someone that was much, much bigger than me, I was in awe that this could all be achieved on such a minimalistic program, and that what I had been doing was kind of antithetical to my progress. Saw that no nonsense kind of attitude about it and really fell in love with it. And when I ran the program, I really, really enjoyed it. When I first started, I was in the novice phase, and it took me into that early intermediate phase. Now the thing is, I actually ran the program completely incorrectly. Still had that more is better attitude. So I took the program and I mangled it to fit that ideal. I took my all-time best maxes, my 100% absolute grinders, and plugged them in to the calculator. I made weight jumps on weeks that I wasn't supposed to jump up on weight. I skipped every single deload. Added in extra exercises that weren't in any template that Jim Wendler had laid out. Finally, just to add a little bit of insult to injury, I was running all of this in calorie maintenance, if not a little bit of a deficit. I did all of this. I made basically every mistake that anyone could ever make. Yet the structure of the program was so strong that my deadlift went up 60 kg, my squat went up 50 kg, my bench 20, and my overhead press 10 kilos. So there was increases across the board despite me utterly mangling this program. One of my biggest regrets is I just think, what if I had been slightly more humble? What if I had followed the program as written? Because of course I got all those improvements, and because of the way that I was running it, I ran into a massive plateau, and I refused to drop percentages. I refused to take any deloads. I refused to go into a calorie surplus, and I was essentially stuck in place until I changed my entire workout routine. Now, that wasn't any problem of the program itself. That was me trying to change it. So I'll say this to anyone. One of my biggest pieces of advice is run this program as written. I often think how much further along I would be had I not wasted so much time utterly destroying this program. Now, what are my takeaways? The program is amazing as long as you run it as written. The power of plus sets. This program introduced me to plus sets, and it changed my entire gym philosophy. This program entirely informed my programming from that day to this day. I've taken a lot of lessons out of having run this program. Even though I completely ran it incorrectly, I still had so many lessons on how to progress that I've learned from this program. If you're someone that's maybe had a bit of a muddy understanding of how to periodise or how to adjust sets and reps to your specific goals, or how to program long-term playing with volume and intensity, that just by running this program, you will unlock that knowledge. It is a great program, but maybe the frequency aspect, if you're wanting to up your upper body lifts, there's maybe better programs you could do for that. This 1 time a week frequency for bench press and overhead press is maybe too little for specifically driving those lifts. Finally, when you run any online program that is popular across the gym community, it's never going to be specific for you. It's never going to take into consideration your specific circumstances. So if that's okay with you, if you're happy getting 90% of your results or progressing 90% of the way there, this program will carry you. It is just, is it the 100% best program for you? Well, obviously not. However, it's entirely free. The information's out there about it, and it will get you about 90% of your results. So I think it's worthwhile for anyone to run this program. I would say that this program definitely gets a strong pass. It's a program that I would recommend, and it's a program that even now I would consider running in future. So let me know down below, what are your experiences in this program? Did you disagree with anything I said in this video? And would you like more of these types of program reviews? If you enjoyed this video, you can hit the like button, subscribe, click in the notification bell so you get updates on any of these types of videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.